Oh, okay, next item under new business, departmental presentation, the police department.
I am here.
Very good.
And I'm just seeing this light. Well, good evening, and thank you for allowing me to talk to you tonight. I do have one handout. It's an update from the handouts I submitted earlier. This particular page was a little confusing, so I rewrote it a little bit, and hopefully it'll be much clearer. In putting together this presentation, I didn't want to make it too long, obviously, and I was hoping to hit the high points that you would find of interest and value to you. So I kind of focused on some historical information, some information on some of our accomplishments for the past year, how the organization's laid out, and then at the very end, some budgetary needs that we're going to be looking for when we get together for our workshops that wouldn't be what you would normally see, and you know, certainly be happy to answer any questions on any of that. So with that said, we'll move on. And basically, from a historical perspective, you may find it interesting that the police department was organized in 1938. We just entered our 76 years of service, and the department has been serving the community with pride and distinction ever since that time. Back in 1938, the department started with just one police officer, and over the years it has grown to an organization of 35 sworn. That includes me, right down to the junior officer, and we have 13 civilian personnel, some full-time, some part-time. It's always been our mantra to be committed to community policing. It's a philosophy we endear, and we have always looked to forge a police-community partnership based on courtesy, professionalism, and respect. Mission statement of the department is pretty brief but clear. We are committed to providing a safe community and improving the quality of life for all our citizens, and that includes the people who live here as well as those who pass through our town during the day or night. And we accomplish this by delivering quality police services and enforcing laws with equity and impartiality. And in meeting these objectives, we are committed to our core values, like the fire department, of professionalism, integrity, dedication, respect, and excellence. And those are core values that we enforce all the time with our people. Next slide is just kind of a quick overview of some of our accomplishments and activities for the calendar year of 2013. The communication center for the town is located in police headquarters, and in 2013, 23,980 calls for service came through the switchboard. And then you have the breakdown of how they played out. It's in terms of police, fire, and ambulance. Full service provider, all services are dispatched to our communication center. We had a total of 476 criminal arrests, 1,700 plus motor vehicle infractions issued, 391 town tickets issued. We responded to 2,654 medical calls. This would be the police responding in conjunction with the ambulance service. 583 motor vehicle accidents were investigated. 931 alarms responded to. 276 animal complaints investigated. We participated in 84 community service events. We have a car seat installation program. 30 of those were installed last year, and 3,310 police training hours for the whole department for the year. I put this slide in because a number of years ago, somebody said to me, you know, we know that the police department needs resources and funding to survive and to operate, but do they generate any revenue? Do they give anything back? And the answer is yes. In addition to the services that we provide, there is some revenue that's generated through the police department. And for the fiscal year 12-13, you could see all those false alarms we responded to, some of those resulted in fines. So we collected $5,100 in false alarm fines. The town tickets that were issued generated $9,745. Every time we issue a state infraction, which is this, the state of Connecticut ticket versus the town gets a portion of those proceeds for certain events, like talking on the phone while you're driving, etc. So quarterly, the state will send a check to the town, and last year, town of Rocky Hill received $16,542. We also oversee permits, pistols, raffles, you name it. Those generate some revenue, $4,360. When people ask for copies of police reports and documents, that generates revenue. Dog fund for the tickets he issues. And this was the one line that I wanted to change on that previous slide. Special duty, private duty, we took in $294,941. Of that, $243,824 went towards the wages of the actual employees, with a remaining profit of $51,117. So yes, the town does make a profit when our officers go out and do private duty jobs, and it's perfect. It's purposely set up that way. It's not a lot, but our costs are covered and then some. So total revenue for the year, $94,535. We're a full service provider, and I just wanted to highlight some of the additional services that we do offer the community. I already mentioned the child car seat inspection and installation program. We do a Cops and Tots reading program in the schools. We do crime prevention awareness for the seniors or for any business, civic groups that are interested in having us come in and talk. The Youth Life Skill Program is basically the program that took over from DARE. So we're in the 5th and 6th grades, teaching that program to approximately 400 plus students. Neighborhood Block Watch, when requested. We have the Police Cadet Program. A couple years ago, we started a police internship for college students, so we have criminal justice majors. We just can't take them all, and the program has become so popular, and we're getting them for 4- and 2-year institutions, and the response has been phenomenal. And it's good community relations, public relations, so that's going well. We do offer a ride-along program. Most departments do not, and we got a lot of interest in that, and that's open to any of you. I know some of you have taken advantage of it as well. Project Kid Care and Toys for Tots in Christmas season. So some of the additional programs. Some of the specialized units that we have within the organization. We do have a motorcycle unit. We have 2 canine officers with dogs. We do have a marine unit and boat that patrols the Connecticut River. Bicycle unit that's deployed on occasion for town events. Honor Guard unit, which will represent the town and the department at various events. And animal control, which is presently comprised of 2 part-timers. Like the fire department, we're also involved in some regional initiatives. We participate in the Mid-State Narcotics Task Force. We have a officer assigned there full-time. We also participate in the Mid-State Accident Squad and Truck Squad, of which they're out on a call as we speak, unfortunately, because of a very serious accident in the town of Cromwell. Participate in the Capital Region Emergency Services Team. That is basically the SWAT team, a regional SWAT team, as well as the dive team, and the recently formed Mid-State Major Crime Unit. So these are regional collaborators that we participate in, and these are resources that are available to us if we should need them if there's a major event in town. In addition to that, like the Task Force 51, we belong to the Capital Region Blue Plan, which is basically a plan involving the 28 towns in Cap Region, of which if we need manpower, if we need additional equipment, resources, it's available to us. And conversely, if somebody else needs it nearby, we will send officers as well. It works out well. There's no cost involved for either end. And like the fire department, these events don't occur too often. The last time we actually activated the Blue Plan was last year when we had an elderly male gentleman who was senile, had walked away from home in extremely bad weather, and we called on those resources. And we've got manpower, we got cops, we got command posts, we got fire, and unfortunately it didn't end the way we wished, but those resources were available. So that's the beauty of these types of initiatives. This is our staffing. Like I said, we're 35 sworn, 13 civilian. It just kind of gives you an overview and breakdown of how we have our people assigned. 3 working in the administration. Patrol is comprised of 25 individuals overseen by a lieutenant, 6 sergeants. Detective Bureau, records, 1 full-time clerk. Then we have an officer assigned to accreditation. I already mentioned narcotics officer. We have a support services officer and the 2 part-time animal control. We have 7 full-time civilian dispatchers, and we have 1 part-time who works Saturday evenings for us. So that gives you kind of an overview of the breakdown. Now, just a couple of the budgetary needs. I didn't want to get too heavy onto this because I know we have the workshops coming up. But you will see this in our operating budget. This is a request for $9,215 for a software program that's called Power DMS. Basically, Power DMS is a data management system. And as you know, we're involved with the accreditation program, and we're slowly redoing all our general orders and policies, some of which go back 30-year plus. I mean, some of the chiefs I see on these documents, we're going 4 or 5 chiefs back. So this is going to bring us up to date and in compliance with the best business practices. There's over 300 standards. We need some kind of software system to manage this, and that's what this Power DMS offers. We can create a general order. We can release it on the computer program. The officers can access it. They can read it. If we so wish, we can actually put a little exam at the end of each policy to make sure that they read it and they understood it. They will sign off electronically. We can keep track of that. Right now, we're using paper sign-off sheets, and it's kind of antiquated. Every time we want to revise a GO, we can just go right back on this program and just make the changes on the computer. And it works great for audits, too. Some of these general orders require that we take action either annually or quarterly. This would include reminders for those types of things, and also the actual documentation when the auditors come in to, accreditate us, and once we are accredited, to maintain the accreditation. So this is kind of a once on request for once. You're going to see in a budget, we're probably not going to need anything beyond this. And we can also use it for our training program as well. Again, we're using the same thing, releasing training orders and having people sign off on pieces of paper. So this will kind of bring us into the modern times, if you will. So that's one thing you'll be seeing with this year's budget. I also included a request for an additional full-time police officer. However, in this particular instance, funded at 6 months starting in January. The council was gracious enough to give us an additional officer last year, and we had maintained all along we're just a little bit understaffed right now. This is what drives some of the overtime, and we felt that additional officer would have a positive impact on reducing that overtime line, and that's what this graph is showing. It did. We've tracked it for the last 10 months. Once we got that officer on board, he saved over 1,100 hours of overtime and over $60,000 thus far in projected overtime expenses we would have had to pay thus without him. And basically what that bar graph is showing you, the blue is what we actually paid in overtime, and the red bar is what we would have paid for that particular month if we didn't have this officer. The beauty of this is with these newer officers is we can float them. Okay, we can float them to where we need. As long as we give them 48 hours, this is in the contract, we can float them. And the patrol lieutenant does an amazing job of tracking their schedule. And as soon as an opening occurs, he'll float these additional officers, of which we can use 4 to plug holes in overtime. So we saw a positive impact with 1. We're very confident we'll see even more if we were able to get another one. Because unfortunately, we don't often work full-staffed. When everybody comes to work and everybody's there, overtime's not a problem. But between the training hours, the sick hours, the personal time, the vacation time, maternity leave, you name it. There's always a job to plug. So this is why we feel the staffing is so important. So, 640 hours thus far saved in overtime because of that officer you gave us last year, and we do appreciate it. In addition to that, there will be a request for a part-time records clerk. As you may or may not remember, we had 2 full-time clerks in our records division, and 4 years ago, one of those jobs was eliminated, and it was devastating. I mean, 50% staff reduction. We have one person doing all of the, in a full-time basis, all the record duties. We've had to actually pull another part-time clerk who was assigned to the Detective Bureau as a clerk person to go in and help, because there's just no way one person can do it by themselves. I mean, we're talking person handling mail requests for reports and documents, FOI requests, handling the false alarms, tracking those, pistol permits, answering the phone. People walk up to the window. People want copies of reports. Transmittals for courts have to be prepared every day for every arrest we made, every motor vehicle ticket that's issued. They track restraining orders, protective orders. I'll just stop there. You get the idea. One person and then another clerk working part-time trying to help her. Basically, if we could get someone part-time, we could plug this person in the afternoons. The problem with the one full-time person is she's sick, she goes on vacation, or she's not able to attend work for whatever reason. There's nobody in there. She goes to lunch, there's nobody in there. She has a doctor's appointment, there's nobody in there. And I just feel that the town of Rocky Hill and the police department can be better than that. And, we should be a full-service provider. We once were. I understand times were difficult, and, I like to think they've improved a little bit. A part-time clerk would sure go a long way in helping that particular office. On the capital improvement side, just want to get you kind of geared up for the fact that we're going to have to make some improvements on the radio system. We've already begun that with our connectivity issues by going to a microwave. But, we still have a console system in police headquarters that's 15 years of age. Generally, these systems are designed to last about 15 years. That's, the way they operate. You buy their product, they don't want it to last 25, 30, 40 years because they want to be able to sell you new parts and a new system in 10, 15 years. So what you find is the life of these radio systems tend to max out around 15 years. And what will happen is Motorola, for instance, will stop providing support and parts. And this is where you have to get creative and go to eBay. And this is where we kind of are right now. So I'm giving you the worst case scenario right here. If we were to replace everything that we need to replace, and this is just no frills here, the console system and the infrastructure, which is basically the repeaters and the receivers, what else, Joe? The transmitters that are out there, the antennas on the tower sites. If we got a price that all that could be replaced right now at $1,635,000. That's if it was a one-shot deal. Now, if we were going to look at a lease option, we could lease those payments over 5 years at the $359, $357 a year. Okay. Town of Weathersfield is going through this right now. I called Jim Citran, the police chief, and I asked him. They're doing exactly what we need here. We got a price of 1.635. Theirs was 3.9 million. They leased it over 15 years. I don't think the system's going to last 15 years. There's no way, no way. And I couldn't believe it when he told me this. And get this, the infrastructure and the console are only 10 years old. I mean, we're already 5 years beyond that. So I know you look at that number and it's scary, but it could be a heck of a lot worse when you look at what some other people are doing. So, certainly that's going to be on the capital improvement needs. And, we could break it down, the whole kit and caboodle, or we could do the console separate, infrastructure separate. That's something council can decide later on. The 2 patrol vehicles are something normally that we ask every year, and that's just part of doing business. But the 4 lease vehicles under that, for a total of $84,243 is something that you wouldn't normally see. These particular vehicles are for the Detective Bureau. We have not purchased vehicles for the detectives through our budget in 10 years. So we're at a point now where those cars have to be replaced, and I think the best option is for us to look at maybe leasing 4 vehicles. We can lease them over 3 years and pay the price of 1 vehicle per year, okay? And these would be for Ford Fusions, 4 cylinders, front-wheel drive, nothing fancy. We were able to secure a price better than state contract through Monaco for $19,785 per vehicle. I mean, I don't know how you beat that. But what that would allow us to do is to get rid of vehicles that one is 14 years old, 2 are 11, the other's 10, horrific mileage, and at least be able to update that portion of the fleet. The rest of the fleet is in good shape. The line units, the administrative command vehicles are in good shape. It's these detective cars that are at least that are causing problems for us now. Transmissions are starting to go. We're seeing some body rot. So that's going to be a request. That'll be there as well. And I figured I hit you with enough numbers with those 2 pages alone. So that's basically all I have, but I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for the presentation. Councilor Kohanek.
The radio console that you're talking about, and you mentioned repeaters, transmitters, and antennas, does that include the fireside?
Yes, good question. When we're talking about this equipment, it's the equipment that serves fire, police, ambulance, public works, park and rec, every town service. So I should have mentioned that. Thank you.
That's it. Thank you. Councilor Bell was next, and then Moriarty.
Thank you for the presentation, Chief, and again, thank you to you and your staff for the professionalism and keeping our town safe. Just a couple of really quick questions. I read somewhere recently, and I can't remember whether it was in the Post or rather the Rocky Hill Life or the Hartford Current, about a class that Weathersfield was holding for their public, and it was really a crash course in what the police department does on a daily basis, all the different functions they serve. Has the department thought of doing something like that for the residents of Rocky Hill?
We have discussed, they call them civilian police academies.
That's it, yeah.
And they're immensely popular with the public. The problem is that, you know, when you put these things together, you have to hold them at night because people obviously work during, you know, the day. So you have to put these on during the evening. And that would generate overtime to have people come in and do the pieces that go along with that. And because we've been so, you know, tight in scrutinizing the overtime, we've opted not to pursue that. I mean, I would love to do one at some point, but there is a cost associated with it, and I kind of felt it was more of a luxury than a need. Okay.
The second question I had is, one of the statistics you had was that the ambulance received calls, I guess it was 3,649, yet police responded to 2,054. What determines whether police gets dispatched to go out with ambulance or not?
Basically, if the call comes in as an emergency or if the nature is unknown, we treat it as an emergency. Police will respond. The difference in those calls are their runs to the nursing homes during the day where they're just doing general transport to hospitals. We won't tie up with a police officer on those types of calls.
No, I was just curious. Thank you.
Councilor Moriarty.
Thanks, Chief. When I sat on public safety, there was discussion about, you know, having one dispatch center for like 3-4 towns. Is that still out there? I know the state was involved with that, and I don't know if it fell off the end of the boat or.
I think the manager has.
Town manager?
That is a dispatch center for 5 towns, the 5 same towns as Task Force 51. We have a $100,000 grant, which is to, we've done the feasibility study, now it is a planning grant. There is no state money to do it. We went out to bid. We received only 1 bid. The state requires 3 bids for their grants. We're asking for an extension so we can go back out to bid. In 2016, the state will be recommending changes in PSAPs. But at this point in time, it is being reviewed because they've had some serious problems, and there's a lot of outcry from those towns that use the regional dispatches that are running through the state police, and calls being dropped and various other things happening that have resulted in loss of life and late response times. So it's going to go, it's going back out for review. So it's up in the air whether that will go forward or not. We're waiting to hear from the state.
I mean, a lot of that sounds good, but, you know, it's still to have that one person in the town at that council that knows the town, as opposed to calling somebody in Newington and has no idea Rocky Hill or whatever, and this and
Well,
that.
that's one of the main, may I speak, Mr. Mayor? That's one of the issues going forward that no one has resolved, and it's the issue of a dark station. People in distress who walk into a police station seeking help don't want to walk into a room with a phone and not know who they're talking to and wait for someone to come off the road to help them. What if everyone on the road is occupied? And many of the towns that have been discussing PSAPs are realizing that it's not going to be as much of a savings because they'll probably have to have a desk officer or someone else in the building, because the public outcry to dark stations is very loud.
Another thing, when you talked about these lease cars for the detectives, excuse me, and I commend you on trying to go to cheaper with 4 cylinders. I totally don't waste your time with them. I mean, if we're going to buy a vehicle and we're going to expect to get 10 years out of it, some of these things, you know, they are going to sit there and idle at different times. They could be involved in chases. I mean, I don't think there's that much of a difference. I mean, it could be maybe $2,000 to upgrade to a 6-cylinder. I think 4 cylinders, I don't think should be in a police car. I'm sorry. You know, I think it's something we should look at, though.
You all set?
Appreciate that.
Thank you. Counselor Vargas?
Hi, Chief, and thank you. Excellent presentation. I have questions all over the place, so
Sure.
just bear with me.
Okay.
I just had just for my own information, when you said town tickets, is that for infractions to town ordinances?
Correct.
Okay.
And
so,
in those cases, the revenue goes directly to the town
okay,
versus those state tickets where it goes to the State Centralized Infractions Bureau.
okay, because that's kind of interesting. We have a number of ordinances, and you only collect $391.
Tom
That's
Hanson.
really, that is the dollars generated through the infractions and the money that comes back from the state. Is that right? The small, like talking on cell phone, et cetera.
Right.
And the town clerk's revenues, because they act as the revenue collector for parking tickets, trespass tickets, and town-written tickets. There's also a list of revenues. I think he predicts it around $16,000. I'm not sure of the actual count this year. It may be lower. It might have been coming in around 12 or 13.
So the town clerk collects the parking tickets?
The
Isn't
town
that-
clerk's always collected the
Yes.
parking tickets and
Yep.
holds hearings, et cetera, for the
So
past
what-
20
what-
years.
What infractions do you collect this amount that you have on your paper then?
Which line are you referring to?
Where it says, town,
Town tickets?
yeah,
That
total
can
town
be,
tickets issued.
that can be a ticket issued for anything from fire lane, blocking a hydrant.
Oh, that type of.
Yeah,
like
I
the-
mean,
the poop-
basically
The poop
the,
law, the dog law, whatever that. Well, I'm just,
he
like
can,
that, or the
yeah,
no
he can
smoking
issue,
law, or
he can
whatever
issue a
those-
town ticket for, you know, a dog without
Well,
a
I'm
leash
just
or.
wondering if you collect
without a
anything on
tag.
those, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, we do issue more state infractions than the town,
Right,
because the state tend to be, you know, deeper fines, and they have to be, they're a little bit more comprehensive than what the town has, but
okay. The youth life skill program, how many officers do we have that work on that program?
I believe it's 3 officers.
Are they, that's just part-time, that's part of their job?
Yes, yes. The full-time officers, they do that, they've been through special training, and they do that on the side.
Okay. I know in the past, we've always talked about the dispatch where you have a tough time holding on to people, they kind of move on and stuff. With what you're saying, where you have 7 civilian and 1 part-time, are we fully staffed right there at this moment in time?
That represents full staffing, yes.
Okay, so we're good, knock on wood?
So far. I mean, we do have, one of those dispatchers is out on injury leave, and we believe it's going to be long-term. So there's going to be an impact on overtime out of the dispatcher's line because of that. And again, this goes back to the request. We are so thinly staffed that when everyone's at work, it's fine. But as soon as something like this, now, town manager doesn't even know this because I haven't even talked to her today. We just were notified by another agency that one of our officers who's due to retire, has been offered a conditional offer of employment. If
I do know it.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't have a chance to talk to you.
No, I knew it before you did, actually.
So it looks like he's going to be going, and that's fine. He's got his time in, he wants to, but now we're looking at that 12 months, bringing somebody in, putting him through the background, through the academy, and I mean, it's 12 months before I have that position filled, and that's where the buffer and the staffing would help. And because we have at least 5 other individuals right now who have their time in, it could go anytime.
May I say something too?
Oh, ma'am.
In a perfect world, the chief would be asking for more dispatchers so that he had the guarantee of having 2 dispatchers on every shift. The chief has carefully weighed what he needs for personnel and understands the budgetary constraints of this year. But this has been something that he's discussed on many occasions, and in reality, we do have a need for additional dispatchers. But if you ask me or the chief to weigh dispatchers against police officers, we'd both have to say police officers. If you asked him to weigh the additional dispatch against the clerical help, he needs the clerical help.
Okay, and I know just in the past we've talked, and dispatch was always a tough area, so
Yes.
right now,
We've been doing pretty well.
pretty well. Okay, that's why I said no.
But it's not perfect.
The software that you mentioned, the DMS,
Yes.
first, you don't have to tell me today, but when you do your budget presentation, a couple things I just wanted to make sure, is the hardware that we have in the police department capable of doing this, or are we gonna have to look at hardware costs? You can, if you don't know, that's
Okay.
fine. And then also, are there gonna be any follow-up fees? Like, is there a licensing fee every year for that hardware? I mean, because,
I do believe there is. It's roughly $2,000 a year,
Okay,
which
but
we could
those
build
are-
into the fees account, but yeah, I certainly review.
but those are a couple of things that when you do present the budget, those are things that I'd be interested in, is making sure that you, because I know we had the whole IT study, I just want to make sure that the hardware that you have in the police department is capable of handling this software, and then also if there are any other type of follow-up fees for that.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, and then last year, I thought when we did the police officers, maybe I'm having a senior moment, but I thought that we were at full complement last year when we approved the budget. Now I'm not, maybe I am questioning it, but I thought last year when we did the budget that we were at full complement for officers.
We were. And then what we
Okay,
were
so I'm
asking
not
was for an
losing it.
additional new body, new officer to be added to the force, which you
Okay, so
you
this wasn't,
graciously
I mean, as
granted.
of last year, with the officer we gave you last year, we were good, but now you're saying in looking at it even further, you need someone else.
We believe that'll be further savings in the overtime line if we get another person this year, yes.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to clarify that one. And then one other thing, when you do your budget, if you could, the infamous fleet inventory.
Yes. Actually brought that with me, 'cause
Just if you can put that, I mean, because we do have new counselors on the council this year, that if you can just give us the existing fleet inventory, and that if you're going to,
coming around.
okay, and do you have the cars that you're going to be rotating out, what you're assuming?
I know the 4 vehicles we would,
For
if we got the new cars,
If you got the lease, and
Yes.
then if you got the 2 new ones?
I can provide
which-
that list for you.
Okay, so, I mean, you can do that when you do the budget, but that's what I would be interested in, knowing that also.
Absolutely. But what you have coming around is presently our fleet inventory right now.
Okay,
And I will earmark which vehicles would be coming out.
okay. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much, Chief.
You're welcome.
What are the ones in yellow on your sheet here?
Oh, those are, signify they're all-wheel drive.
Oh, okay. Very good. Counselor Zeps.
I don't mind the 4-cylinder police cars. That could even be 2 cylinders. It gives us a better chance of getting away. Just in case we had to. The DMS software, Is that coming on a recommendation or supported by our technology study?
Have they been consulted on that, to our knowledge? Right. Yeah, this program came to us through other agencies that are utilizing it, that are going through the accreditation process. So I don't believe we've sat down with anyone from IT as of to this date and gone over this with them, but that's certainly something that can be done.
Weathersfield's council is only 10 years old, their communication council.
Correct.
Is that something you're looking to grab onto in the event you need it?
No, they operate on a different frequency, so they have equipment that we can't use, but that would have been a good idea.
Check eBay.
They've also had problems with it since the day it was installed.
Yeah, they didn't have very good luck with it.
That's why they're
We'll
replacing it.
pass, we'll pass.
Yeah.
The protocol for having officers responding, officers and equipment responding is, and I understand from what you said about the DMS software that it's going to help you update some of these procedures, but I don't even know what example to give you. Similar to what the fire department goes through. When they have a fire call, they'll respond with 2 or 3 vehicles of a certain type and a certain number of personnel.
Correct.
Do you have something similar that
We
when
do.
there's an event, what you respond to?
We do. You notice some of those are mid-state initiatives, which is us and 4 other towns, Weathersfield, Newington, Berlin, Cromwell, and then us. And then some of them are capital region. We have people assigned to the mid-state teams, so if that squad is activated, people that are on that team would be sent. For example, the narcotics force, we have 1 officer assigned. The accident squad, we have 2. The SWAT team, we presently only have 1. Dive team, we have 2. And major crime, we have 2. So they go. The blue plan, which is more like their task force 51, is a capital regional plan, 28 towns. So it has layers built into it, depending on the event and the length of time. So for a department our size, we would, for an initial event, if they were asked to provide help, would probably only be able to send 1 or 2 officers. That's in the plan. As time goes on, we might be able to provide additional if we needed to. But everything like the fire service is relative to your department size. I may be sending 1 or 2. New Britain's probably sending 6 to 8. So it balances out. It balances out. And a few times that it's been used, it's worked well. It's worked very well.
I just make observations when I watch events unfold on television, and I always notice that particularly the sensitive ones and the high visibility ones, there seems to be, as far as you can see, flashing red lights.
You make an excellent point. That's exactly precisely why the blue plan was created, to avoid that, to avoid the front entrance to Sandy Hook School when that incident went down, where nobody could even get a vehicle down, and never mind an ambulance. It was just chaotic. And unfortunately, the blue plan does not include the state police, though there has been some discussions. They just show up. They hear this stuff. They will just show up. So that is exactly why this plan was created, was to avoid that. And the Newington Police Department had a similar experience a number of years ago when an officer was shot and killed in a basement. And the same thing, everybody running like Indians to the scene, and nobody knowing what's going on, no coordination, no command, no control, and this stops that. There's specific layers that has to be activated before people can be sent. So
That's encouraging to hear that, because, you know, unfortunately, it's happening too often, the events, and we have to make sure that, you know, we have the proper response to these things. Otherwise, it gets out of control. And I believe that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Castellano.
Thank you. Just a wrap-up for me. I wanted to thank the fire and police for presenting this evening. It was very beneficial. I was in Newington when Officer Lavery was shot and killed, and that was horrible, and the response was dramatic. So thank you for taking that into consideration and responding to scenes. Just on a personal note, my nephew is a Rocky Hill Police cadet, so we can't speak highly enough of your department, your staff, and the ability to bring people in, young people, and that civilian police academy is really something that it would be great to have in our town, maybe even working with surrounding towns to make a joint civilian police academy, so that's not just bared on one department alone. That might be something to consider too, but thank you for all that you do, your public service, it's much appreciated, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Anyone else? Counselor McDonald.
Sure. Hello, Chief, how are you?
Doing well, thanks.
This will be quick. During the, I participated in one of the ride-alongs that I would encourage everyone. I'm sure many of the counselors that have been here for a while have already done it, but I would hope for the newer counselors to do it. I mean, it's a great experience, and one of the things you talk about is your mission and what, respect for the community, and the officers I rode with absolutely live that. So it's not just something we're seeing on the overhead, it's really what they do. But in the ride-along, I noticed one of the cars I was with had the license plate readers on it.
Correct.
Which is not only a way to, identify those registrations that are expired or whatever, but it's also a safety tool for the officers, I believe. Is there any plan in your capital or during the budget session to increase the number of vehicles that have those?
I did not put that in this year's budget, and I'll be honest with you, I'm working on the 5-year budget, capital improvement. I didn't put it in there only because the cost, they're $16,000, but they're tremendous tools. I would be happy to put it in there and run at the risk it might be taken out. I just didn't want to, be pushing it too much.
Well, I can only speak for myself. I would encourage you to include it, because not only is it an item of safety, I believe, for the officers, but also there's an indirect generation of revenue to the town. When you pull over someone that has an expired registration, sure, you can say some of them will just continue, pay the ticket, and go on, but many will then have to come in and get it re-registered. In order to get it re-registered, they have to pay their property tax.
Correct.
So in order to do that, they have to go downstairs, and at times, I know what I pay for my car tax. It's quite a bit of money, and there's not too many of those before you got enough for a camera. So I would just encourage you to think about that. And, I think not only, again, is it a way to generate some byproduct revenue, but also it's another safety tool for the officers.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
I have one follow-up question on
Counselor
that.
Steps.
On that topic. Are you done, Counselor McDonald? Do you know, town manager, when that event takes place, when a person is in trouble getting their vehicle registered, they have to come in and pay the property tax? Are you able to put those two items together?
We can't associate it directly to stop for an unregistered vehicle. We wanted to try to do that and issue tickets for and stop people actually for non-payment of taxes. However, in investigating it with the city that does it, which is the city of New Britain, they explained to me there's no legislation that really enables you to do that. You can stop and give them a warning and suggest that they do it. But New Britain really only does it between 8:30 and 4:30, Monday through Friday. It's more of a warning. They did get into trouble for getting a little too heavy-handed with it. But no, the tax collector does know when somebody comes in, but they don't have to come to my office. It does appear in reports as prior year's revenue if it goes back that far, or uncollected taxes, and it does, come up on various financial reports. But they come in intermittently. What they have to get is a piece of paper from her that they must present to motor vehicles that states that they've paid their taxes and now are able to register their vehicle. One of the things that we've looked at, the chief and I have discussed, it becomes somewhat of a spatial and a manpower incident, is actually impounding plates so that we remove them from the vehicle when we stop them and have the vehicle towed, and then having people come in and actually have to show that they've paid their taxes and register their car again to get their plates back. That would stop them from going out on the road. We haven't enacted that because of the issues of having somebody keep track of the plates, where we're going to store the plates, et cetera, but it is something that we're going to continue to visit. Councilor McDonald hit on a very good thing with the reader. I firmly believe in it because not only does it allow us to stop unregistered vehicles and collect the taxes, but it protects the citizens of Rocky Hill who could be in an accident by someone who has an unregistered car. The taxes aren't paid, and all liability, there's no insurance. And that ends up putting a financial burden on innocent residents who could be hit by somebody coming through town that has an unregistered vehicle. So the chief and I will be discussing the reader for this year's budget.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Councilor Moriarty? And then
Chief, with them readers, will that also pick up a car that they're looking for, wanted or stuff?
Absolutely.
No, and correct me if I'm wrong, you may not even, maybe you can't even answer this question, but I thought they were trying to challenge those readers in court, that they weren't.
There is a group that's challenging it, the Civil Liberties Union.
Right.
They haven't been very successful thus far in moving forward with any kind of agenda. I think you're going to see them here to stay because they're just a very effective law enforcement tool. And again, it's not highlighting every car. It's just highlighting cars with either bad people driving them who are wanted or cars that are stolen and so forth. And I think that's why they really haven't been able to launch much of a case against it.
If you're abiding the law, you're not getting pulled over, plain and simple.
You got it.
Councilor Kohanek?
I wouldn't bet too much money on the amount of tax money you're gonna receive on a car that's driving through this town unregistered. Because, first of all, when they get stopped, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, pull them over 1 o'clock in the morning, the car's not registered, we're towing it. Call the tow company, goes away. That's the last he sees of it. It's not anybody sees of it. Case in point, 1 o'clock this morning, the car was pulled over for non-registration, nothing. At 9 o'clock this morning, they must have gone to the Department of Motor Vehicles, got it registered, got their insurance, and it was back on the road at 10 o'clock in the morning. So there's no checks and balances between his folks stopping the car, identifying it as a non-registered vehicle, making it get towed, because you can't drive it no more, and the guy coming back the next morning and saying, how much I owe you, and out the door. Am I right?
That's true.
So, if you're planning on making money on the readers, not that readers are a bad deal, now you're not gonna have to, because he could not even be from this town.
I was just going to say that.
He could be from somewhere.
Right, but the question that I asked the town manager was, if you elaborated on your particular example, if that person owed property taxes to the town of Rocky Hill, before they could do what you just described, they'd have to come to the town. At that moment, the town manager knows that that money is coming in as a result of that reader in the police car.
That would be a step on the police department side to say, we stopped so-and-so unregistered in our town and had it towed. But the gentleman or whoever's car is stopped and towed, you don't have to go down and see the town manager.
No.
Only if there's a thing in motor vehicle.
Right.
It could be, there could be a thing in motor vehicle that they owe taxes. That's,
Right.
Well,
that's,
I understand.
right, that's the only time
There's
it'll work.
nothing making him go pay anything. He
Well,
pays the
I-
tow company.
Yeah, I
out
know where
the
you're,
door.
I know where you're going with it, yeah.
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 In the case that they're not a resident of town,
It's
well,
somebody
we
else's
just
time.
did another town to service.
Did them
Right.
solid, sure.
As they do us as
they
well
do
with their
us.
systems.
Right.
But again, it provides a safety for our
Absolutely,
residents.
yes.
Many of the vehicles that are unregistered come in to use certain stores within our community. And that makes our residents who are going to those stores, into those plazas, in jeopardy also. And we're protecting our residents by stopping unregistered vehicles, getting it out there that we stop unregistered vehicles, and having you think twice if you're going to come to Rocky Hill with an unregistered vehicle, which again protects the residents of Rocky Hill.
All right.
And Mr. Kohanek, that's when I said it was a byproduct. I mean, it wasn't the primary reason to get the readers. I mean, I truly believe every vehicle, police vehicle, should have the readers on them.
I'm not
personally.
disputing that.
And when I said a byproduct, means it's not the primary purpose of doing it. And I truly believe, and you could do the reconciliation, you could go through and print off from your system all the ones you gave tickets to for registration from town vehicles, right? And you could actually give it to the town tax collector, and they could look at that. I mean, so that's an easy enough exercise to do if we wanted to look at the cost. But again, it's a byproduct. And I think the first thing is safety for the officer, as well as the residents of the town, and I truly believe the town does get some byproduct revenue from it.
All right, very good. I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Actually. Civilian Police Academy, is that the same as a community service officer?
No.
Okay, because I know somebody from another town was a community service officer. Is that something Rocky Hill has ever done or ever would do?
They haven't done it to my knowledge. It's the only town I think nearby that has them or did have them was town of Glastonbury, where actually civilians are paid to perform basic duties, for the police department. Beyond that, I don't know much about them because they're not widely used.
Like the old constable?
It's like a constable, yeah, like
Have a
someone.
gun or anything, but they got a nice uniform.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in Glastonbury, they may have other duties, I don't know, but it's gone the way of the constable. Not many people are using the concept, but it is different from the academy.
Yeah, it just seems like you could use something like that for directing traffic or something and be a bigger revenue producer. But that's something we can talk about. The you needed another records person or a part-time one. Is that a police officer job? Or I guess where I'm going is, for salary requirements, I know you have a couple animal control officers. Can you use them that are probably at a lower salary to do some of the records work or some of the other tasks?
The records clerk is a specific pay grade. I do not believe ACO is the same pay grade, so there may be some union issues.
The animal control officer is part of the police budget. The records clerk is a civilian, a clerical staff member who is paid in accordance with the ASME clerical union. If it's under 20 hours, it is a non-union position.
Okay.
I mean, ideally, that would be a full-time position, but again, I'm trying to be, I've watched the meetings, I see the demands that you have and the decisions to make, so we're just trying to be reasonable, but to go 4 years with just really one full-time person it's taking its toll on the individual who's there. So anything at this point would be.
Is this the first time you've asked for another part-timer?
Yes.
Or-
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yep. We were able to be creative for a couple years, and we've run out of creativity.
Very good. Well, thank you for your presentation.